Welcome, friends. Syed and I are here once again to talk to you about some of very, very basic fundamental issues and challenges that our democratic system, one of the largest democracies in the world, faces, and how it is affecting people, how it is affecting the state, how it is affecting different stakeholders in the state, and how it is affecting the world. Anything that happens in America or is done by America affects the entire world directly or indirectly in some form or fashion. We will be continuing this dialogue over the course of time throughout the election year. And we want you to participate with us in this dialogue. Present your point of view. Democracy is nothing if citizens don't participate. They don't speak. And if we let the vested interest group hijack our democracy, we suffer. They don't. They benefit from it. And the biggest stakeholders that benefit from citizens not participating in it are the profiteers, are the neo people, neocons, neoliberals, neo-capitalists, all those people. They take over all the resources. They leave us struggling. They push us further on the fringes. So we must participate in every which way we can. One of the best gifts that modern era has given to us citizens anywhere in the world is democratization of media. Ever since, these corporations, and they've not fully lost control, but they at least, could not stop citizens from participating, smaller groups and individuals in participating. All social media citizens can go and they can have their voice heard. So this is a big gift that inadvertently, came to us, and we must use it judiciously, wisely, persistently, and to our benefit. And I say that because we have been using our vote, which seems to be in our fractured democratic system, which seems to be the only right or tool we have left, and we have used it against our interest. Citizens, yes, I'm repeating this, that voters, citizens in the United States have used their voting right against their interest, knowingly or unknowingly. Either they've been indoctrinated and disillusioned by the vested interest groups or by the system, or they've been lazy enough to not do that. They've deliberately joined this. Like the slogans like blue no matter who is really such a dumbfounded thing to say. You need to see the candidate. You need to see their policies. You need to see where they're taking this country, not just because of a color or a party that you stand with. Either party. I'm not talking about one or the other. I just use that phrase. That just came to my mind. It seems to be a very, very popular phrase. So what we will do is we will talk about all different aspects of it, and we want you to participate in it, give your opinion, raise your voice, participate in democracy any which way you can. Syed, I've said a lot in the beginning. I want you to, contribute to it, and then we will carry on the conversation further.
Thank you. The key word here is fractured democracy, the word that you just mentioned. I would rather call it rigged democratic system. A lot of Americans now, they're starting to think that there's only two-party system in this country, right? Throughout these years, they've never had a choice of forming a third party or a fourth party. In like many democratic countries in the world, there's always a third or a fourth choice. Why cannot Americans have a party that is built solely from a grassroots level that represents the interest of a common average Joe, average American? So now a lot of people, the citizens, they're starting to think that both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans, they are controlled by the same forces on both sides. So the candidates that come up the chain, that go through the pipeline, they have to shake hands with these same forces, these same super PACs, these same international establishment players that are trying to influence the decision-making in America, that are pouring in huge amounts of monies into these election campaigns. So, for instance, these super PACs, right? If a person goes against them, we can use an example of any, like a APAC or super PAC or any X, Y, and Z PACs, or any other internationally powerful agency that is pouring funds into the election campaigns of any candidate. So they play on both sides. They pour monies on both the Democratic side and the Republican side. So it's a win-win for them. I mean, people think that they play against each other, but at the end of the day, it's the American citizen that is fooled. But if you see their policies throughout, the overarching policies of the United States has throughout been the same. We have local issues that get submerged. The average American's issues are not addressed. We have healthcare issues, we have border issues, we have so many internal issues that are never addressed. So people, when they come out and vote, they always expect a sort of a different outcome, but always the overarching policy, internationally as well as nationally, it's always been the same. So this is the one thought that came to my mind, was that I've never heard of a concept or anybody coming up with this idea of why cannot American people have their own America First PAC, like an election campaigning, like an organization that raises funds for the candidates that are actually true voices of the American people, that actually represent the true sentiments of the people. A lot of Americans, they don't want these global wars that are happening all around the world, these international, military industrial complexes that they sort of collude together and they wage these wars in different countries and destroy. But an average American, they don't want these wars, from their taxpayers' money being waged out. So this is the thought that was coming to my mind, that why cannot American people have their own PAC that funds the candidates that are true patriots, that represent true interest of American people? So with that thought, I will pass it back to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ziad. I think there's a lot to say and talk about it, and we will be hopscotching. We will be, going back and forth through different topics as the context demands. We'll be talking different things. In 3 more years, America will be hitting 250 years of its independence. 1776 to 2026, it will be 250 years. In 250 years, America has not been involved in an active war for only 26 years. We are a warring nation. War is in the DNA of the United States. Somehow it runs the economy, it runs the society, everything related to war. The war rhetoric has been built to a point that every American thinks that for one reason or another, war is very necessary for America. Most of the citizens have been dragged into and dumbed down into a paranoia where they believe that, countries that are surrounding America, like Cuba or Canada, which are, Cuba is just tinier than any United States, state. Is smaller than, and it's actually smaller than any metropolis, is a threat to the United States. On the other hand, Canada, which is bigger in land, but it has 1/10 of the population and even smaller of an economy, and is a very friendly country. 13 countries next to United States. Most of them are friends. If you combine their military budget, United States has a bigger budget than the 13 of them combined. We have more than 550 military bases in the world, more than that. And we've either been directly engaged in acts of war, or we've been sponsoring wars, and we've been in proxy wars, supporting wars somehow or the other, based on one reason or another. I was watching this old sitcom, 2.5 Men, and the two brothers and this little kid who's one of the brothers' son. And they were saying they're arguing, and one brother says, "Oh, it's a father-son issue." The uncle, Charlie Sheen, plays Charlie Harper in the show. He says, "Oh, so it's like pre-war Iraq, father-son issue, which caused the Iraq war." Many believe that behind that Iraq war was a hubris that caused that war, and then we build that story. So my point is, one reason or another, war has been one of the very important, and I know a lot about it. I can talk about it. More than 26 million veterans, and they're committing suicide on a daily basis. There's a significant number of suicides among veterans. So war is a huge part of this economy. We will be talking about how war affects our democracy and how our democracy is affected and also affects the war. That's one thing. Second thing is, you said about two-party system. There have been efforts and attempts by, I can remember Ross Perot did that, Jill Stein of Green Party does that. But the most recent dent to this war, two-party system, has been caused by these parties. And I'll tell you how. I came here to the United States as an immigrant 33 years ago, and I participated. I was a stick young man. I participated in Bill Clinton's electoral campaign. I've been a foot soldier and campaigner. I go door to door and talk to people. And I did it for Bill Clinton he was a Democrat. So I thought they were better than the Republicans, because Republicans were openly critical of many basic human rights. I didn't realize at that time, which I much later did, but they were not much different. And then I continued supporting them, and my height of my excitement, and I thought all of the work that I had done for what I believed in was a liberal movement, was paid off when Obama won the elections. And we will go into the DNA of how Obama got to win the election in this country. A black man got elected to the highest office. That is the leader of the free world. And one more striking factor, the reason I talk about my immigration, I come from South Asia, Pakistan, which is part of South Asia, 7 countries, largest being India and smallest being Bhutan. There, Maldives and Bhutan are the smallest countries. That region has seen female heads of state. India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and even Burma has seen that. They've seen. United States is still far from that. United States is not ready to accept. So I'm telling you all these things because these are very important parts of democracy. 250 years of independence. Women got voting right in 1920s. From 1776 until 1920s, women did not have voting right here. And then all of that kept happening, I don't want to go too far back into history. We may not have that much time, but we will continue talking about it, how Abraham Lincoln played a role in it, how Civil War did it, Confederation movement, the entire, era. That has not ended. That's why I would like to talk about that. JFK's assassination, Obama's election. These are the landmark, happenings that have shaped this society. So I was talking about how Democrats and Republicans gave rise to the third and fourth party. I mean, Ross Perot, Jill Stein, other people have tried independently. What was that? Consumer rights advocate. I forgot his name, and it will come to me. I'll tell you. But that he did that as well. But it was none other than Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, both outsiders to politics, and both got, a big dent in both parties. Bernie Sanders, an independent senator from Vermont, he caucuses with Democrats, but Trump, totally outsider. He was not a politician. He was never a politician. He was never a conservative. Trump is not a conservative. He never lived by any Christian values. He was more, identifiable with Democrats or liberals than the conservatives. So where did we, bring our democracy to? How did we bring to that point where it gave rise to an extreme socialist? The name socialist used to be a S word in American society. Bernie Sanders not only brought it to mainstream, but he got such popularity and such fame that why? And Trump, as he said, he was no Christian, no conservative, no politician. How did he get to the point that he got elected a president? And then what happened? We will be talking about all these things over the course of time in this. And the last thing, I don't want to make it too long, and I want to address this briefly, and then I would like our audience to start contributing, giving their feedback and telling us, and we will continue this. What you said is very beautiful thing, and that has been missing from the equation. And that is, where is the citizen in this democracy? We have vested interest groups, we have two big parties, and there are several smaller parties, and there are corporations. And how did corporations weigh into democracy? How did corporations become humans? How did they have a say? How can they affect people's life? And where the bottom line is brutal, cruel corporate profitability, how do they shape our democracy? Why did we give them so much power? And how did we do that? Where did the American citizen, the voter, disappear? Why did we lose our voice as the citizens? What happened? We are the largest and biggest flag bearers of democracy, Western democracy. Why have we not been able to protect the rights of our citizens and voters against all of these things? Are corporations and politicians colluding? Are the judges, our court system, Supreme Court, so to say, the selection process of those judges is so politicized that either they have to be Republican or Democrat, and whichever side is in majority, they take those decisions? And I say this because one watershed decision that affected our democracy is Citizens United. It's a case, Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, that has changed the course of campaign financing and campaigns and virtually everything in our democracy, because money in this capitalism, and I used the word neo-capitalism before, it's not capitalism anymore. We have changed the very spirit of liberal movement. We have changed the very spirit of conservative movement. We have changed the very spirit of democracy. We have changed the very spirit of capitalism in this country. Why? What happened? We will be examining all these things. We will be engaging our voters, our citizens, us, people who are eventually affected the most by any elections and by any decision these politicians make at federal level, at state level, and at local level. Why are we so oblivious to it? Why are we one of the lowest turnout country in elections? Midterm elections, which are one of the very critical elections, we don't think much of that. Less than 40% turnout in the elections. And in federal elections, we do not really have an accurate account. We have a range 50 to 60%, which is again very, very low. In a bipartisan system, it means that 50 to 60% votes are divided. And from those 50 states, there are 5 swing states that decide your future. And these are the people who are, until the election day, they're undecided. I mean, you see a 50-year-old person who has lived 50 years in this country, and many voting elections and so many non-voting elections. The great thing about American society is that they engage kids from very early age into every process in the society. They start learning and becoming an productive and effective part of that. How can a person at 50 years of age in a 2-party system country be undecided till the election day? And that person, that 5, maybe even less than 5% voters decide who will win the elections and who will decide the fate of this country. Can you imagine how mind-boggling this is? More than 320 million people, less than 5% of which being voters. And I'm talking about voters, right? Non-voters are less than 1% people who decide after Citizens United. They decide who will win the elections, because wherever the money flows, they will decide it. And I'll tell you, just closing statement, that how critical this Citizens United decision has been, and it is all because Supreme Court had more conservative judges. And that's all because the process of election or selection of judges is so flawed. And that is because it comes back to because we don't vote. We don't participate in our own democracy. So that's why now corporations can buy any Congress, any Senate, most of the parts. Some of them definitely are not sellouts. They don't sell. They stand up for their people. They stand up for this country. But most of them love money more than they love anything else. So that's what has been happening. And that's what now we are on the verge of another. And this is probably the only country where election is spread over an entire year. I mean, it's such a tiring process. It goes on and on and on. 2 parties. But the election, entire year it goes on. It's so complicated. And there's so many cracks and loopholes, and nobody talks about it. Maybe some voices here and there. But nobody effectively talked about electoral reforms. I mean, electoral college is such a cumbersome process. And then they have circumvented the system to bring so many things and loopholes to control the parties, control the elections, tilt them. I mean, pre-election rigging and fraud and this voter fraud and identity fraud and gerrymandering and all those kind of things are like part of everyday thing. You see this inflation, people's lives have become so challenging and difficult. 2 people now working 2 jobs cannot make both ends meet for a small family. It was not too long ago in my lifetime in America when one person working 1 job could earn a decent living for the family here in the United States. From there, we have come to this point. Before COVID, the richest person in the world, which was an American, had $45 billion. Now, the richest person in the world, who happens to be American, 3 years later, has more than $200 billion, and it keeps increasing. It's mind-boggling concentration of wealth, mind-boggling inequality. how did it come into being? If we are the voters and we elect our representatives, how can such adverse and devastating decisions and policies are being made, which are crushing the citizens? So these are all the issues. It's a very complex and very vast issue that you can see that we cannot cover in one or few sittings. So we'll continue to keep talking about it. I want to close it. I would like you to say something. And then I want to invite our viewers and other people who have interest in democracy, who have interest in the progress and development of this country, which eventually affects the entire world right now. So I want you to, close it, and then I want everybody to participate in.
So my simple thought that I had was regarding a PAC, regarding an organization that actually funds the candidates. Because, like you mentioned, campaign financing has actually sort of corrupted the whole process. And like you mentioned, it takes one full year, which requires a lot of funds and energy. So, the candidates, they need to get some sort of financing. And then they have these, these giants that want to control and have an influence on America and on the overarching policies, foreign policies of America. So they're just sitting there, and these candidates are like sort of incapacitated, and they get nurtured with these funds by the time they make it,
this is one of the major critical factors a candidate is nominated, that how much money they can raise. Please go ahead.
And anybody that goes against these giants that are sitting, any candidate, he's completely crushed, and they bring up another candidate in his competition, and they finance him and advertise in his favor to that extreme where they completely destroy the career of the other candidate. So we would definitely like you to touch more and get into the details of these, and of course other elements that are that influence the American whole election process and the American politics, as well as the American policies overseas. So this is a very broad issue, and like you mentioned, we'll continue to touch more on each as we go into doing more and more episodes of these vlogs.
All right. Thank you very much, Ziad. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Please stay tuned for more, and please participate. Give us your feedback. Tell us whatever you want to say. Come on our show and say whatever you would like to say. Thank you very much for being with us. Until next time.